from Frankston City Libraries. Today we are introducing you to our Frankston Foodies. So for our first recipe, we are going to create the famous Country Women's Association scones. So in this bowl I have 4 cups of self-raising flour, which I've already measured out. Now it doesn't need to be sifted, you can just pop it straight in. Now the important thing, once you have popped it in the bowl, is to just create a well in the middle. So that will be for your liquids that we're about to pop in. So to the self-raising flour, you just need to add 1 pinch of salt. Now to those who aren't sure what a pinch is, we are literally just looking at between your thumb and your index finger. So that is your pinch of salt. And then we're also going to add a teaspoon of sugar. Now if you're looking at your measuring spoons, a teaspoon will be the one with 5 mils on it. Now for your liquids. Now you'll be needing 300 mils of thickened cream and 300 mils of milk. Now when you are looking at your measuring jug, if your measurements are on the outside, it's a really good idea to get down low and at eye level with that measurement to make sure it's level. Otherwise, mine here actually has the measurements on the inside, which is really helpful. So we'll pop the milk in. 300 mils. And just 300 mils of thickened cream. And then we can pour that straight into the well that we've already created. Now the secret to the CWA scone really is to not overmix it. So with the scones, you'll just be gently folding it over until it all looks really moist and sticky. Now if it doesn't seem sticky enough, you can add a dash of milk in there. There's nothing better than really moist scones with a bit of jam and cream. Now there is a lot of conjecture over whether it is jam and cream or cream with jam. So I'd be keen to hear in the comments which you go with first, the jam or the cream. Personally, I am a jam first. I feel you spread jam and then you dollop the cream on top. I'm not sure how you actually get the jam on top of the cream after the fact with a knife, other than having a giant dollop of jam. Now before we started this, we did turn our oven on. So the oven for a scone is a hot oven, which is at 200 degrees Celsius. On a fan forced, you might get away with about 190, but mine's fan forced and I still do 200 and we're pretty good. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I've still got some flour sitting at the bottom, so I'll just get that up. Now as you can see here, it is quite sticky. There we go. But you can still see there's a fair bit of flour that's not actually combining. So we'll just grab our milk and we'll just pop a little dash in there. Okay, that's looking much better. That dash can make all the difference. So obviously for your own family at home, it makes for a lovely moist scone. In competition, if you're interested in an agricultural show competition, it is nice to have them on the moist side without being gluggy in the middle. So you still need to make sure they are cooked through. So you'll see here it is quite sticky and that's perfect right about now. I do prefer to have mine a little bit wetter as we're about to flour the bench top to then press out our scones. So just grab a little handful of flour and just sprinkle it over the bench top. And then you can actually just tip your dough out onto the bench. Okay. Now I know in the past, I've always made rocks for scones up until the day I joined the Country Women's Association and got my hands on this recipe. There is no kneading, so it's really important not to overwork the mix by kneading it. I've got all that. And it's important to flour your hands as well. Otherwise, I mean, the dough will still stick to your hands, but it'll be far worse without having floured them. Okay, just put that down there. So I flour my hands, pop a little bit over the top. So as you can see, it's good that the mixture was quite moist to begin with because we're adding quite a lot of flour that's actually going to be pressed into it. So the key, as I said, is not to knead it, it's just to press it down. So you'll press it down till about 2 centimetres, which I'll just move the camera there. So about 2 centimetres you want it done to. And that's about perfect. Then you just grab your scone cutter. This is about a 5, 6 centimetre cutter. If you are making scones for competition, they need to be over 5 centimetres, but not too big. So a 6 centimetre would be your perfect. In a set of 3, it is your middle cutter. So you just need to flour that up and press it down. And then you can pick that up. The first batch is usually a bit difficult, and you've got your first scone. And then we just pop it over on the tray. Now, as you'll see, I do have baking paper on the oven trays. It's just to stop it from sticking to the bottom. There's nothing worse than burnt scones sticking to your tray. So after each one, you just pop it straight back in the flour so the next one doesn't stick, and take it out. This is actually a slightly larger cutter than what I would normally use. I actually can't find my competition one at the moment. I just double checked the oven because a little trick is when you've used a scone cutter or a cookie cutter, once you've washed it, you actually pop it in a hot oven afterwards. Once you've washed it, pop it in the oven, and that will dry your cutter to make sure it doesn't go rusty. So you'll see that you end up with your outer there. You can just push that together, try not to knead it, and pat it down again. So I just flour my hands, bring all that dough together. It will have stuck to the bench as well. We'll reflour the bench. Just bring that together and pat it back down. We'll leave this lot a bit higher. Those other ones were a bit thin. So flour your cutter and go back in. So your scone really should be the same height as your cutter. So that's a nice height there. Now using the slightly smaller cutter than this, as I said, about 5 centimetres, you will make about 15 scones out of this recipe. And that last little bit, I like to just roll up and just create the shape of a scone. So people do like to place their scones all different ways on their trays. I prefer this one with about a centimetre and a half in between each one. That gives them the support of each other to rise without flipping out sideways. It also means they will only just stick together. You can pop them really close together, and sometimes people do it in a round, so in a circle, and that way when it's being shared you break away a scone, so it's quite a nice feeling to break that away. And I'll just pop this one straight in the oven. Now it'll go in here for about 12 to 15 minutes. Maybe set the timer for 12 minutes and then just keep checking it. But when it's nice and golden brown on the top, they are ready. The best part about the CWA recipe is if you let them cool and pop them straight in the freezer, they'll last for around 3 months. And if you just pull them out, either thaw them out in the fridge or pop them in the microwave if you want a nice hot one, they will actually come out feeling like you've just made them. If you'd like to crispen the outside, pop them straight in the oven. So it's been about 15 minutes, so let's see how they're going. Wow, they're looking pretty good. So if you were baking for competition, at this point you'd be wanting the ones that aren't actually touching all the others. So one like this, and you just flip it on its side and let it cool. You'd also then get your melted butter and just brush it on the bottom and then across the top, and that'll get rid of that fluffy flourness. Ready for judging. And that is the secret to the CWA scone. Now while they're cooking, you could get your cream ready. So you just need to whip up, if you've got a 600ml bottle of cream, just whip up the remainder of the bottle. A little trick is to pop a little bit of sugar or a little dash of vanilla essence in there before you whip them up to give them a nice sweet flavour.